Okay, obviously tough one. Credit to Rutgers, but we didn't play well enough to earn a win or earn a chance to continue on playing. Do got a great appreciation for the guys in that locker room. Spent a little bit of time digesting, talking. There's some seniors out of that group that put a lot into this place and played their final game, and got a lot of respect for them for really being open-minded to buying into a new way of doing things this year. And I do think they played with a lot of great effort and showed some leadership and things. I told the team these things are tough when guys had just finished, so appreciated them, but also spoke to the rest of the group, those that didn't play their last game at Spartan Stadium. I'm still confident that we can get this thing in a way better place. It's going to take some work, though, and we're in the midst of it right now, and these things are disappointing. And we had some definite ups and downs this year, and we got to keep on plugging away and going to work. I got a belief in our approach, our process, and how we're doing it, and want to feel like the guys that have more time here, we can get it going. But we got to get it. We got to play better. We got to get better, and so that starts with me. The approach, coaches, right? We're going to digest this whole season and find ways where we can play better because we need to. And this place, you can do it here. We just got to keep on working to get it done. And just quickly on this game, I think that really separated in the second quarter. You look at the 4th and 1, we can't get a yard inside the 10, so they take over. They go 95 yards and punch the thing in. Don't get much. They end in more or less a 2-minute drive of our field goal, and then we go out there with 3 snaps, 3 incompletions, don't take any clock off, and they chip in another one. So the momentum swing there was big, but you're regrouping at halftime. Got to get a way to get a stop and really score first in the second half to get yourself back into it. They come down and convert, I think, 3 or 4 times on 3rd down, take about 8 minutes off the clock, and that really changed the thing. And that's what Rutgers is about, man. They're leading the league in time of possession for a reason. And so they really separated the thing at that point. Questions?
Jonathan, you took this job on during a historic change in the college landscape, even with you not having a chance to evaluate everything and even having another game had you played and been successful. What's something that you were thinking about, or some things you were thinking about that kind of have to happen going into the future for Michigan State football?
Well, in this landscape, right, I still think this thing's a game of development. So whoever's on your roster, those guys need to get better and develop. And we've got some good players on this roster that have a lot of years left of eligibility, and confident that in our approach, those guys continue to work. And that's on us as coaches to develop them. At the same time, you got to continue to add good players that can play at a high level, that are in on our approach of doing it. And we're confident we can do that. And it turns into these next couple of months, there'll be quite a bit of that.
Hey, Jonathan, over here. I was wondering just real quick, is Jalen Thompson okay when, a scary injury like that?
Yes, he was released and doing okay in concussion protocols, what I was told.
And then as far as where you go now, what's your next step? Is it, exit meetings with the players? How do you digest the offseason like this?
Yep, this next week we will more or less exit meetings. We meet with every player to digest the season, talk about the future. We will do that, and then the rest of the month of December, transfer portal is open, and we'll be evaluating and trying to add to our roster at that point.
Jonathan, I'm wondering, you point to that 4th and 1 play. When you call the timeout, is there any conversation about taking the 3 at that point, or was that a we're going for it moment, and was there anything that you saw that maybe broke down?
We didn't feel confident with what we had lined up in a formation. We weren't totally certain that we were correctly aligned, and so at that point, especially in the first half, I'm going to make sure you use timeouts to have certainty that we are all on the same page. There really wasn't, with those conditions, a yard. We had good movement on the previous play, on I think a 3rd and 2.5, and so no, we were inside of the 10. The value 7, 3, obviously 0. There's a big separator there.
Jonathan, obviously not your first rodeo. 2 wins, 5 wins, 2 wins. Your first years at Oregon State before you had the big upswing. How would you compare the pace and the scope of that rebuild to what you're facing here? And what would you say to fans who are beyond frustrated at this point?
Yeah, I think that the landscape has changed going all the way back, whatever that was, six years ago, and you can turn the transfer portal, NIL, was not existent when I first got started. I do think there's some stepping stones, even as frustrating as some of the points of this season were, that we're going to build off of that. You know, if you younger players got a good amount of time, that's value there. And so if those guys keep playing and getting some experience, we worked through this season with some young guys in some young spots.
Coach, how would you compare life in the Big Ten to life in the Pac-12?
Yeah, it's good. Well, I mean, because we got 4 of them in the league. I do think the line of scrimmage matters. I think this weather matters too. The experience, just a couple of these last ones, that's a little bit different. This thing is competitive now. There's some good players, good scheme going on, tough road environments. Not that I'm saying the Pac-12 didn't, but that stood out to me.
Jonathan, to your right over here. When you mentioned the kind of work to be done and the next steps, I'm curious, when your guys go through a season like this where things don't go the way maybe they had planned, how much can you learn about who they are as players and as kind of growth mindset people going forward?
Yep. You do. You learn a lot about how people handle adversity, setback, disappointment, and on the flip side, handle some success and attention and all of that. I do feel like there's a lot of guys in that locker room that are competitive. Football means a lot to them, and they'll be ready to bounce back.
Jonathan, over here. What's your sense right now is just how far you are away as a roster as you start to look at what's needed to compete at the line of scrimmage, depth on the back end, whatever it might be? How far are you away, and what's possible in one off season?
Yeah, I think a lot's possible in one off season. There are some positions that we need to get better. We got to add some depth there. We need some current guys that are getting a lot of snaps to take a step in their game, which I'm excited about doing that work of that. But yeah, each year I think now, and especially in this landscape of college football, you're going to have some turnover on your roster, and you got to do a nice job of identifying and plugging in spots where you need it.
Jonathan, I was wondering, start to finish with Aiden, what you saw from him over 12 games, what you thought you'd get coming into the season based on what you'd seen over a year and kind of just his overall performance.
Yeah, I thought just looking at from start to finish, he continued to compete. He continued to, recognize that his game, his individual play needed to continue to work and improve. And I think I look at the last few, I don't think he's turning the thing over later in the year comparative to where he was at. He can't do it on his own. We've got to surround him scheme-wise and with some personnel to take a step. I got respect for him. It's not easy to play that position. And to go from week 1 to week 12 with all the ups and downs, the way he handled things, I got a ton of respect.
To your left over here. In your opening statement, you mentioned that you talked to the guys about a new way of doing things and that you believe in your processes and your procedures to turn this thing around. How would you explain what those processes and procedures are so that the fan base can believe with you?
Yeah, I spoke to the team on an appreciation that it was a new way. Anytime a new staff, not saying one's better than the other type thing, it's just new, it's different. And I appreciate the group that I do feel like they bought into a lot of the work, the idea of doing it together. We've got to get better and grow and develop. This is the ultimate team game, and so we got to do it as a team. We've emphasized a lot of those things, and I'm just confident that, again, the guys that make it not just strictly about themselves, those are the best teams, and that's confident in what we're building here.
Jonathan, throughout a lot of the season, we heard you say your goal was to be in a constant state of improvement. At the end here, when you look back, where do you feel like you guys made improvements this season, and what do you feel like was accomplished that can be carried over into future years for the program?
Again, constant state, like it's statistically, those games, I think the turnover thing was down the last couple offensively. That was a huge hiccup on that side. I think about just the individual players of growth. Look, we were playing in some spots with some guys that weren't, 12-game starters, but those guys continue to work on their game and think about the situations of the game that, we experienced maybe early on, and you want to do it better at the end. Not totally convinced. I think about the 2-minute today was not nearly as good as some of those 2-minute drives. So, but overall, each individual, if they're going through at work week in and week out, diving into practice, diving into the scheme, experiencing the game and learning from it, and then back to work on a Tuesday practice, individually, 1 through 12, guys will be playing their best. I think that's how you got to do it, man. You got to put in the work, and a lot of this work takes place off season, right? The process of that now starts. But during a season, the week work on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday give you best chance on Saturday. If you complete that weekly process, then you're back to the next week should be a little bit better.
I'm wondering about the flip side of that. Maybe some areas of stagnancy or regression throughout the season that you felt maybe cost you, and then as kind of an aside with that, the Nate's penalty and the ensuing kickoff. How much did that affect you?
Yeah, it's it's disappointing that we did that because we had nice momentum to start this thing. It's 7-0, and the snow game, and I haven't talked to them on it, but it's not ideal. And then you're kicking off 15 yards back. They start their first drive on the 50, and then they answer right with 7. And so, look, these guys play hard. It's an emotional game, but that was a disappointing one. At times. Yep, and then they came back on us a couple. I think, just in general areas, right, we want to affect the passer more. We started off pretty hot doing that. Toward the end of the year, that, wasn't as good as we would have liked. And again, that's not only individual players. Look at the schemes, right? We're putting more tape out there, and that's why you got to own some of this as coaches.
One final one in the second row. Yeah, so 11 games against FBS opponents, you guys weren't able to outscore any of them in the second half. So, how concerning is that to you, and what needs to be done to, flip that around next year?
Yep, we got to be, you got to play better in the second half offensively. I think about that. Just too many times where there's good flashes, we got good plays, but the ability to sustain it on longer drives, we've got to just got to be a little bit more detailed and make some of those plays to put it in the end zone.